Have you ever wondered how the mighty Roman Republic, the civilization that shaped the Western world, came to be? It wasn't born in a day. It was forged in fire, rebellion, and a solemn vow to never again be ruled by a king. Our story begins not with emperors and legions, but with a city built on legend, founded by the twin brothers Romulus and Remus. According to myth, Romulus became the first of Rome's 7 kings. The early monarchs, men like the pious Numa Pompilius and the warrior Tullus Hostilius, were seen as just rulers, guiding the fledgling city-state through its infancy. They established laws, religious customs, and expanded Rome's influence over its neighbors. For over a century, the monarchy, though absolute, seemed to work. Rome grew from a small settlement on the Tiber River into a significant local power. The people, organized into clans and families, largely accepted the king's authority, believing it was sanctioned by the gods and necessary for their survival. But the winds of change were blowing from the north, from the lands of the sophisticated and powerful Etruscans. The turning point came with the last 3 kings of Rome, who were not of Romang or Latin descent, but of Etruscan ancestry. While initially a popular and effective ruler who undertook massive public works projects, like the Great Sewer, the Cloaca Maxima, and the Circus Maximus, the nature of the monarchy began to shift. The power became more centralized, more autocratic. The Etruscan kings brought with them a different style of rule, one that was less about consensus with the Roman aristocracy and more about absolute personal power. His very name, Superbus, means arrogant or proud in Latin, a title he earned through his tyrannical actions. Tarquin didn't inherit the throne peacefully. He seized it. He conspired with his ambitious wife Tullia to murder his predecessor and father-in-law, Servius Tullius. In a shocking act of impiety, Tullia is said to have driven her chariot over her own father's dead body, which had been thrown into the street. This violent usurpation set the tone for his entire reign. Once in power, Tarquin the Proud ruled with an iron fist. He completely disregarded the traditions and institutions that had governed Rome for centuries. The Senate, which had once been a respected advisory body, was systematically terrorized. He had many senators executed on trumped-up charges, seizing their wealth and consolidating his own power. He refused to consult them on matters of state, treating them with open contempt. For the common people, the plebeians, life became a nightmare. Tarquin forced them into grueling labor, building his extravagant temples and public works, treating them like slaves rather than citizens. He surrounded himself with an armed bodyguard, a clear sign that he ruled not by consent, but by fear. The legal system became a tool of his oppression. Justice was for sale, and the king's word was the only law that mattered. Beneath the surface of this enforced order, resentment simmered. The Roman people, both the patrician aristocrats and the plebeian commoners, were growing restless. The patricians, stripped of their traditional influence and living in fear for their lives, longed for the old days of shared governance. The plebeians, exhausted by forced labor and crushed by unfair laws, felt their dignity and freedom slipping away. People began to whisper in the shadows, sharing stories of the king's cruelty and dreaming of a different future. The spirit of rebellion was kindling, slowly but surely. All it needed was a spark to ignite a full-blown inferno. That spark came from a deeply personal and horrific tragedy. While the Roman army was away laying siege to the city of Ardea, a group of young noblemen, including the king's own sons, were drinking in their camp. They began a drunken debate about whose wife was the most virtuous. To settle the matter, they rode back to Rome to spy on their wives. They found most of them feasting and enjoying themselves, but one stood out: Lucretia, the wife of a nobleman named Collatinus. She was at home, virtuously spinning wool with her maids. Sextus Tarquinius, one of King Tarquin's sons, was consumed by a wicked lust for Lucretia. A few days later, he returned to her house alone. He was welcomed as a guest, but in the middle of the night, he went to Lucretia's chamber and, threatening her with a sword, he violated her. The next day, a devastated Lucretia summoned her father, her husband Collatinus, and their close friend, Lucius Junius Brutus. She told them what had happened, made them swear an oath to avenge her, and then, believing she could not live with the dishonor, she took her own life with a dagger. This was the final straw. The sight of the virtuous Lucretia's body, profaned by the son of the tyrant, was more than the Roman people could bear. Lucius Junius Brutus, who had long pretended to be a fool to survive Tarquin's purges, pulled the dagger from Lucretia's wound. Holding it aloft, he swore a sacred oath to drive Tarquin the Proud and his entire family from Rome and to ensure that no man would ever again be king in the city. His impassioned speech ignited the crowd. They carried Lucretia's body to the Roman Forum, the heart of the city, for all to see. The story of her tragic fate spread like wildfire, turning simmering resentment into open rage. The rebellion was swift and decisive. Led by Brutus and Collatinus, the citizens of Rome closed the city gates and declared the king deposed. When Tarquin the Proud heard of the uprising and rushed back to the city, he found himself locked out and exiled. The army, hearing the news, also abandoned him. The monarchy, which had ruled Rome for 244 years, was over. The people had taken back their city. In the aftermath, the Romans gathered and, true to their oath, established a new form of government. They vowed that the supreme power, the imperium, would never again be placed in the hands of a single man for life. Instead, they created the Republic. Power would be shared between two annually elected magistrates called consuls, who would check and balance each other. The Senate was restored to its position of honor and authority. The year was 509 BC, a date that would be forever etched in the Roman consciousness as the birth of their freedom. The story of Lucretia and the overthrow of Tarquin the Proud became their founding myth, a constant reminder of the dangers of tyranny and a testament to their love of liberty. The Roman Republic was born, and it was destined to change the course of history forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story of rebellion and the birth of a republic as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the incredible history of Rome. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to explore. Until next time,